Hi everybody, it's Sascha from Das Potenzial and I'm here today with Iris.
Hey everyone, my name is Iris, but I also go by Iris because I'm originally from Uruguay, made with Taiwanese parts. My family's originally from Taiwan.
And tell us more about your story, where you're coming from, your work story, your background.
Yeah, so I am a chemical engineer by design. I've spent about 24 years in the food and beverage industries with brands like Lay's, Doritos, Cheetos that you might be familiar with, and also French fries. So I've been always around potato, which has been fantastic. Really developing new products, and in the career journey, had the opportunity to live in different countries to experience the culture and the ways of working between folks.
And you mentioned you lived in many, many different countries, for example, Russia, you worked in Turkey, and different European countries on top of this. You want to tell us more about your experience of working in different countries with so many different cultures and backgrounds?
Yeah, so I was in a state where, I knew I didn't want to be an engineer all my life. So I was always exploring opportunities to continue to grow. And I always had this curiosity about developing markets, just because I was unfamiliar with. So this opportunity came from my boss of exploring. And not that I picked Russia, by offshot, but it was more like, hey, would you consider it? So there I go, off to Russia, experiencing my look and sing week. And I fell in love. It was middle of the World Cup, there's energy, excitement. I didn't know how to speak Russian at all. And there I was. I just packed my stuff. My dog and I went. And what I thought was a 2-year assignment ended up being 5. What was incredible is I was based in Moscow, yet got to work with the region of Turkey, Romania, Poland. So very cross-cultural when it comes to language, the way people eat, their preferences. So when you do product design on that, it's quite entertaining.
That sounds very interesting. And I love how you take this adventurous spirit forward. You say hey, I'm considering it, maybe a year. And then it turns out to 5 years and you're all happy. I can see the smile, being excited. That's what all this is about. Adventuring, of learning, moving forward, not stopping, putting yourself out there. You just mentioned that in these different countries, in the different regions, all the food was different. And the way food was consumed was different.
Yes.
What was surprising you most when you think back?
What's interesting is I think we all think of food as there's a taste that we all love, right? And if there's a pride when you serve it or when you share it. But I think what connects us all together is food is actually a connection and a conversation starter, right? In the way that, you could get the food and be like, well, I don't like it, or maybe I don't eat this, maybe I don't eat that, which is, completely fine. But I think it allows people to kind of share a part of them and open up, which is what, from all the trips I've taken in any country I go, being the first thing for me is don't take me to kind of like an international chain. If you can, let's go experience. So you go to the small mom and pop store where more locals are sitting and you really immerse yourself in the experience, so that it's not about like I've been in this country. It's actually I'm a big part of this country and I'm wonderful.
I love it. I'm part of this country. I'm one of them, exploring really their culture, traditions even, right? But
yes,
the food, because it's not always the same. And you said it was easy through that to make connections. So you made a lot of connections on your journey through different countries?
Yes. The beauty I say is the world feels very big, but you can bring it small if you put yourself out there, what you talked earlier, right? I think, we always feel home wherever, at least for me, growing up in Uruguay, coming to the US for university, then working in a country like Russia. My family's in Taiwan, so I've always been kind of on the move. So for me, home is where kind of your heart is. There's a physical home, but there's also a connection home. So because I travel so much, having that spirit makes it really, like the homesickness, I think, comes a little bit later, right? Because you are there, go meet people you don't know, ask questions, right? I think it's very easy to be the different person because you're coming in. It's so much more rewarding and exciting when you go, okay, let me find out how people do what.
I like it. I'm curious. You were saying what in executive roles in these companies overseas, different countries, which means as an executive, you have to work with the people on the ground in these different countries. Can you share a little bit more about your experience and how you are perceived with all this international experience in the different countries?
I've always been fortunate to experience like global roles. That's something in my DNA, thanks to my multicultural background. Being an executive, right, there's always this feeling of distance, like the big boss, right? You show up and the red carpet experience is what most executives want. What I've learned a lot in my career is that that's not what I'm looking for, right? Like, it's very easy for people to tell you everything is good, right? I think the honesty of what's needed for the business that you can understanding from the people that are day-to-day doing the work, it's so much more valuable to really drive performance. So I try to do more the trips with my team, meaning the team is very connected to, right, the locals. And it's incredible how immediately, yes, you are the boss, but it's like, I'm going to tell you everything that's not working, everything that, we have an opportunity to do better. And that insight, it is so valuable, right? And then there's this desire to like, okay, and then what do we need to do at your support, right? And there's engagement right away versus feeling like, okay, we heard there's this problem. Okay, would you like to do this? And then people are not engaged. It's a problem they take ownership on, which I think as a leader, it has worked magically for me.
That's very interesting. So you're saying that you actually build the connections with the team, you let them show you their country. So you got closer to them through this connection, through this food connection. Well, build teams which are much closer together. Yes. And here's my question now. How did you, by building maybe a friendship with them, how did you handle when you had to provide a negative feedback or generous feedback?
Yeah. I'm going to maybe address two ways of this, because you and I talked about like the individual countries, right? But because I'm in a global role, it's one team, right? So we can be all different, but you have to find common ground too to operate, which is very important. So otherwise, there's no point in being a team, right? So one of the things I always say is the world is smaller if you find commonalities with each other. So I led a technical team on processes, and that allows a common language that everyone speaks. As like whether you make French fries or potato chips in Australia has to be the same as India as Argentina. So it doesn't really matter, right? So that was a common ground for everyone. Now back to your question on then how do you give feedback? I think there's two schools of thoughts, and I think I found this to be dependent on the culture, right? Some people only focus on the negative and like, oh, I can't do this, I can't do that. I think as a leader, and we've seen this through the years of leadership, is keep strengthening the strengths so that that becomes their superpower. Once the superpower comes out, there is more energy to put a little bit more time in elevating, or kind of, I call it dial up the things that you're not as comfortable with. So the feedback usually is, hey, let's talk about where you think you want to dial up and down, right? And that conversation to me is a conversation. It's not like you've done this wrong or, hey, you could do better here, right? It's like, what do you need to be more effective? What do you need to, achieve your next promotion?
I really like this. Thank you for sharing. It's something we do in coaching all the time, is the idea of working with the strengths of the other people to show them that they can do so much more, whether executives, senior leaders, whether female, male, people from all different places and up the globe. Interesting, because you're so often getting feedback of like, oh, there's one area you can improve. But you always have to remember, how many people told us? Is it only one person? Is it like feedback we get over and over again? Then maybe we should consider it. But if it's only one person, don't worry so much. Worry about your strengths, work on that stuff, make sure you can elevate what you can do already very good.
And if I can add something to that, one of the best advices I got from one of my bosses, sometimes your job is designed to do something that is purposefully upsetting someone. Meaning, if we all had the same, call it, path to get to the goal, then as a team, you're not pushing the boundaries, right? So I remember one role I had, it was really about pushing bigger innovation, right? Like, we don't want to just do flavors. You want to go like a new market. And it's very easy for our commercial teams to be like, a new flavor is so much easier, right? But going and learning how to say no, as to get to that space, really got me feedback like, she's always saying no, right? But the reality is I actually learned a skill that I never knew how to do so by the design of the job. But the feedback was, yeah, she's always saying no, a concept was negative. So then my takeaway was, okay, now I need to figure out how to say no with tact in a way that allows people to see more the thought partnership versus this constant like, no. So I think there's some magic in that you mentioned.
Yeah, it's operation.
Yes.
The partnership, seeing where this other person comes from and building this connection, this bridge to their thinking, to their idea, so that you appear like as constructive as possible, while they still maybe say no.
Yes, and they land on the no themselves. Because it's so much better when you say it than somebody's telling you, right? Sascha, yesterday we were kind of exchanging stories, and something that came to my mind was, as I was thinking, my experience to Russia, kind of like moving there for 5 years, and you were talking about your trip to Lake Tahoe, where hiking is one of your passions, really, discovering is something you love, adventure. And then you tell me the story of you encounter something that I will let you share with everyone. But it made me think, how did that experience come to you of wanting to and then continuing to do it again? And I leave it there with a suspense for you to share.
Thank you.
What your experience.
I think it's a very great topic when we talk about taking risks, about growing ourselves and ensuring that we are not scared to do stuff. Because when we are scared, it holds us back, right? And I had this experience in Lake Tahoe, which I shared yesterday with you. I went to Lake Tahoe for 5 weeks in October, and the idea was to adventure, to get my mind calmed down, to really focus on work, but not in the work environment, to be somewhere else, to see how that will change the atmosphere and my thinking, my calmness. So it was very clear to me that I will go hiking. So the first day I go hiking, super energized, walk into the forest, and I'm like, there are bears here. I'm not used to bears. In Germany, we don't have bears. So I'm like, whoa, what to do? So I got scared, got anxiety, walked back. So 10 minutes in, 10 minutes out. Next day, 15 minutes in, 15 minutes out. Realizing very fast that this will not accomplish my goals. So I had to challenge myself. The next days, I walked more. Every day, a little bit more. I ventured into the forest longer. And to be honest with you guys, I was very scared the first couple of days because I didn't know better. I didn't see a bear, but my anxiety level was high. I looked right, I looked left. I was like, where is this bear? Is it up there? There was not. Until I actually stepped over Rubicon Trail one day, heard like all the rustling leaves, and my heart pounded. I was like, what is that? I stood still, frozen, and a bear runs over Rubicon Trail, and I'm just like sweating. The bear stops, looks at me, and walks away. So this fear I built up for myself didn't really seem to exist. So that was the first experience with the bear, which made me actually much calmer afterwards. And from there I could adventure even further. I saw many more bears. I learned from the locals that the bears in Lake Tahoe are usually not they're not the grizzly bears, so they're not dangerous per se, unless you were to annoy them obviously and not give them space, unless you go between them and get pups, which you can all avoid. And so I saw many more bears on my hikes. Neither of them was trying to get closer to me. And I think that's a big learning experience which we can take along for our future, for everybody of us, because the idea, like being scared, is not bad. But letting the fear run our life is very bad. And we have to learn how to overcome our fears. Similar as you mentioned when you went to Russia.
Yeah.
You haven't been in Russia before. How did you handle that? Like just flying there and then like, okay, I don't speak Russian. I don't know the culture, but now I have to work here.
As you're talking and sharing your story, I was trying to think how you said a really good point. Like once you try, then you try further, right? So I look back a little bit. So I grew up in Uruguay, and I actually had the fortune to be able to come to the United States for university. I actually came to university on my own. Think of a 18-year-old, 2 luggages. You just take your plane on your own. My parents didn't come with me. I land in Indianapolis, and then I have to take a bus from Indianapolis to West Lafayette, Indiana. So I look back and then I show up. I had never seen campus. I didn't know how to sign up for class. English wasn't my first language. I went to British school, but like day to day, I wouldn't speak English with people. So I remember even my first day, it's just like I would literally go to Subway and just point because I was so afraid. Like you said, I didn't have the courage to engage in the culture yet, just because I wasn't doing it every day. So then I think, wow, actually that gave me the comfort and foundation for Russia. Because at that point in time, I remember, you're 18, your friends are already all at home, they're doing university where they are, and mom and dad are not there to cook your warm meal, I'm actually the first one in my family that went to university. My parents worked really hard to ensure I could have that experience. So I felt, I owe it to my parents. I have to be able to do this. And I remember calling my mom, call it first week of school, and I get emotional about this because you're sharing the stuff, and then all you do is click. Like you hear mom on the other side. So this is kind of mean, right? But her attempt to do that twice, third time, it gave me the courage to say, I got this. She could have made a choice, be like, yeah, like you want to come home, right? Do you want to train? No, I know it sounds very cold, but to be honest, I'm thankful that she did that, because then that means then I graduated from university. And with that, I felt like I wasn't afraid anymore with that experience to go to Russia. In Russia, I said, okay, I don't know the language. I actually didn't know anyone there. I was going with a dog, which, by the way, it's not easy. No kids, but it's kind of like a young kid that you have to take care of. But I learned probably two things. One is build your community, right? Like I think I did all the homework, try to connect with people, and people connect me to somebody else. And then literally by the time I arrived, I had 3 people I knew physically there. I had never met them, but it was this like, okay, that gave me comfort and confidence. And then it's trying. I think back about like food, again, that connection. I didn't know how to say anything or what meal. So it's either they had pictures, I couldn't read Cyrillic, so I had to figure it out. And you go through this process of like self-discovery on what you don't think you can do, you end up doing it. So I found myself in a restaurant with the waitress going, no, yes, moo, right? And there we go. I got my beef, which was a success. You figure it out, right? I had already in my mind, like, if she doesn't get that, I'm gonna like draw and maybe like we get somewhere. The reality is those experiences propel you for the growth, right? And back to your point on career, I'm 100% sure that had I not had those experiences, I don't think I would have like pushed myself to take another one, right? So I love your kind of little stepping stones. And you might be thinking, well, it takes, a lot of coordination, a lot of planning. Yeah, absolutely. But I think if you set your mindset on, hey, I got this, and find your people to help, it happens. And what's the worst thing that can happen? You didn't like it. So I really forced myself for a 2-year contract, just in case I didn't like it. But I had the option that if I wanted to go back 2 years, I'm back. But ended up staying 5.
Very nice. Thank you so much for sharing. And I think it's such an important point, right? Like the idea of failing, which so many of us have in mind. But what does failing actually mean? It doesn't mean everything is over if something doesn't work out. The way I like to do it in coaching actually is to talk about getting more, not failing. Because wherever you go, the idea is not to win. The idea is, how can I get closer towards my goal? And if the goal is not reached, there is a reason for it. And it doesn't mean you failed, but maybe you have a new goal which is more important to you. So just focusing on winning and doing the very best is not always the best strategy. You cannot win everything, but you can get closer to where you want to go, make yourself more comfortable, and so just get so much more for you. Wow, what an interesting session so far. Thank you for joining. We talked a lot about courage.
Yes.
And I would really like if we could finish our conversation by giving some advice to our listeners on how to build courage, what to do next.
Yeah.
Do you have any 2 steps you can share?
What comes to mind really actually is this was my first time with an audience out here. It's the courage to try. I think when you reached out and asked me, would you do it? I think my first instinct was like, no way, I've never done this. Why am I going to do this? I was like, I do not like cameras and everything like that. It's very easy to like, your muscle that says no, or like, I can't. So that links then to my second. So the first one is the courage to try, right? So I'm here standing, putting myself out there on something that I've never done before, and being able to share that experience with everyone. And then the second one is there's, of course, the little voice inside of us saying like, you can't do it, you can't do it. So I could have taken an approach with you, like, send me the script, let's plan this. And then it would have taken us forever to just stand here and have a conversation. my little voice inside says, whatever happens, it will happen, right? So this is exactly kind of a little bit the mindset.
And you guys have to know too, we are like here at Berkeley actually, we're standing outside. So that's the real background. People are walking by and still she had the courage to stand here with me and openly talk in front of the camera. So I appreciate that.
And it's the first time we meet.
And the first time meeting.
How about you? What are 2 things you would leave everyone with on courage?
I can only second what you just said, especially the part of, don't be afraid. Step forward, try it out. You don't need to reach perfection, but you have to get more of what you want. And even if you have a very big goal, as many of you know, I want to sail around the world at some point. But this is a very big goal, which I cannot just achieve this year easily. So I have to put this goal into smaller goals. I have to learn to navigate. I have to learn how to read the stars in case the navigation systems go out. I have to learn how to sail better. I have to find the right pathways. And obviously, make sure I have enough money to do it. But all of those things take time and steps, one step at a time, to get closer to the goal. And maybe at some point, I will not sail around the world, but sail to Fiji, to Thailand, and to other places. So don't be scared to try. Don't be scared to start where you want to go and do something that brings you further to where you want to go.
I think that's progress over perfection.
Yes. And my second point, what would be my second point? I think it's very important to be you. You know what you want. Make sure you get what you want. Don't hold yourself back because other people might judge you for something. Like today, again, we are standing outside here in the middle of Berkeley. People come by and you look at us and you're like,
what are we doing?
Yeah, and I cannot walk over that bridge. Now I want to walk over this bridge. But okay, we are here. We want to be here. We want to record that for you guys and for us. So go out and try. Don't be scared. Thank you very much for listening. It's Sascha from Das Potenzial.
And Iris or Iris. Nice to meet you all.
And we want to invite you, if you want to talk more about courage, to our roundtable, which we do together, probably in April or May. If you're interested, let us know so we can talk about the subject a little bit more in a bigger group.
And let's try to get a lot of people from around the world and make the global nature of courage conversations wonderful. Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, everybody.
Bye.